Well, I get asked all the time, Ben, what would you do if you had to restart your business tomorrow? If it went to zero and you had to restart tomorrow? We run a $2.5 million real estate business. And if that went away tomorrow, I would do exactly what I did to start it and get to where I'm at. We close 70 plus deals a year, do $2.5 million in net profit a year. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how I went from zero to $2.5 million in 12 months. This is a tactical blueprint for anybody looking to start in this business. And in the next couple minutes, you're going to learn how a simple sticky note on a door landed my first deal in foreclosures. How I found almost anyone's phone number for free to keep deals coming, and the advanced strategy that I use to turn dead leads into $20,000 plus paydays. By the end of this video, you're going to have the step-by-step plan to do it yourself. So let's dive in. So step one, what would I do in the very beginning? Well, I would pull free foreclosure leads. These are your hidden gold mine. If I'm starting over with zero money, my first move is to find leads that cost me $0. And there are so many free leads out there that most newbies ignore. My favorite ones are foreclosures. So specifically, I would pull up foreclosure listings on auction.com and Zome.com. These sites list homes about to go to auction because the homeowners are in distress. Translation, these folks need help fast, which means they're very likely motivated to make a deal. So what I'm going to do is gather up a list of these upcoming foreclosure properties in my area, and I'm going to put them into a Google spreadsheet. The reason that we do foreclosures, though, is because most investors skip out on them because they're afraid, or they might just be ignorant. That means low competition for me. So the clock is ticking for these homeowners, and if I can offer a solution, they're going to listen. And all it costs to get this list is just a little bit of time, $0 spent. So step two, I'm going to knock on these doors, and I'm going to use the sticky note trick. So now that I have my list of distressed properties, what I'm going to do next is what most investors won't. I'm going to go directly to their door. Is it scary? Yeah, at first it is. But this face-to-face approach instantly sets me apart from all the other investors hiding behind their text messages, their phone calls, their postcards. And when somebody answers, I don't pressure them. I might say something along the lines of, hey, listen, it looks like your lender scheduled a sale. Hopefully you have it handled, but if you don't, I've got some options for you. And then I just shut up and listen. So being there in person is going to build trust fast because I'm showing up when others aren't willing to. But what if nobody's home? That's where my sticky note trick comes in. I leave a brightly colored sticky note, one of those neon sticky notes you can get on Amazon, the whole pack you can get for $2. And I write on that note, you have options. Give me a call. My name, my phone number. That's it. No mention of buying the house. The curiosity is the point. If you found that note on your door, you'd probably call, right? And when they do call, now they're reaching out to me. I've had homeowners call back the same day asking what I want. But that just opens the door for me to explain how I can help them avoid foreclosure by selling their house. So quick example. One afternoon, I went around my city with these leads, and I left 10 sticky notes. By that evening, I had 2 calls already, and 1 turned into my first. So step 3, I would put on my detective hat. I'm using TruePeopleSearch and Facebook next. So despite all the door knocking and the notes, some owners are hard to reach. Maybe they've moved away, maybe they're avoiding everyone, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give up. It means I'm going to get creative. So my go-to move is I use TruePeopleSearch.com and a bit of Facebook digging to go and track them down. So TruePeopleSearch is a free site that gives you phone numbers and addresses when you input a name, when you input an address. And I found a ton of homeowners this way. Not only that, I find their relatives and I also find their associates, and I can call them. So for example, if I had a vacant house on my list, no one ever answered, no one came to the door, I would plug the owner's name into TruePeopleSearch and then get either their cell phone, their phone number, their landline, or I can scroll down on that page and get their relatives, get their associates, and call them too to try to put the pieces together of where this person is. Are they still alive? Even maybe, they've passed it down. It's been inherited by somebody else, to try to get to the bottom of what's going on with this property. Again, things that most investors aren't willing to do. when you dig a little deeper, you're going to see results that other investors won't. If that doesn't work, I'm going to Facebook next. I'm going to search the person's name. And sometimes I'd find them. Sometimes I'd find a relative. But then I'd just send some sort of a polite message similar to what I'd say at the door, or if I was on the phone, hey, notice your lender scheduled a sale. Hopefully you have it handled. If you don't, though, I'm here to help. So the point is, with $0 spent on any of these fancy tools that you may see around the wholesaling or the real estate world, I would still be able to get my first deal just by using free resources. You just got to be politely relentless and reaching homeowners. You're going to get deals that others miss. So that persistence was the key in getting my first deal and a ton of deals after that. And if I went back to zero today, I would have that same mindset. So step 4 is I would land that first deal and I would have that proof of concept. That hustle would come together when I landed my first deal. In my case, back in the day, one of those homeowners, the older lady that was about to lose her house, she agreed to work with me. I signed a contract to buy her house for $120,000 with the plan to find a flipper to actually go and close on the property. Sure enough, brought in an investor willing to pay $150,000. And when the dust settled, the investor paid that $150,000. The seller got the $120,000 that she needed, and I made $30,000. That came to me as my assignment fee. So boom, $30,000 right in my account. Even if I only made 10, if I were to go back and start again from zero today, I would take $10,000 and put it back into my business, invest in other types of leads. So that first deal would be all the proof that I needed that this would work. And I can tell you how good it feels when you get that first deal, you make that first $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 and go from $0 to a 5-figure payday, just using a little bit of hustle and a bunch of free resources. But with that cash in my pocket, it would be super easy to want to go out and buy a new car or go take a trip. I wouldn't let that success go to my head. I wouldn't run out and buy that car. I wouldn't go blowing money. Instead, I would take that money and reinvest it into my business. So step 5 is reinvesting. Rather than running around and trying to dig up more leads and more deals, doing it the way that I just did it, which could take a lot of time. Pulling the leads, going and knocking on the doors, leaving the sticky notes, making phone calls, reaching out to people via Facebook, that can take a lot of time. Rather than doing that and trying to find somebody that's interested in raising their hand saying, I want to sell, I would go and reinvest my money into inbound leads. People that are already raising their hand saying, I want to sell my house now. Those leads would come directly to me and I would be able to close them over the phone. So there are a bunch of companies out there like PropertyProsMarketing that all they do is they run online ads to find motivated sellers, people who want to sell their house fast. And then they send those leads to investors that are looking for leads. So in short, I would use my money to buy back my time and scale up. So that effect would be pretty quick, right? Within weeks, I'd have motivated sellers calling me, asking if I could help them. My business would switch from feeling like I was pushing a boulder uphill to now riding a bike with the wind at my back. For just a few $1,000s in marketing, I'd be talking to dozens of qualified leads. Even if only a few became deals, the profit from those deals would far outweigh the cost in the, to be honest, the time that I would spend driving around looking at houses. I'd start closing more deals each month thanks to those inbound leads. Now, more leads, more deals are great, but it would also mean that I was getting really big. At this point, I would probably still be a one-man operation, trying to return every call, go on every appointment, handle all the paperwork. It would get to be, I know that to keep growing at this point, without losing my sanity, I would need to both maximize each opportunity and get some help. So that's where steps 6 and 7 come in. So step 6, squeeze more out of every single lead. So as my lead flow would increase, I'd get some sellers coming in saying, hey, I want to sell my house, but I want closer to retail and I don't really have a strict timeline. Those types of sellers aren't a great fit for the typical wholesale option. People that have a little bit extra time, people that want closer to retail and they don't want the cash offer. What would I do with those leads? Most of those people would kind of just fall by the wayside because they wouldn't accept the 50 cents on the dollar, 40 cents on the dollar wholesale. So I would turn those leads into Novation. So here's the gist of a Novation. A Novation lets you take a deal that doesn't work for a normal wholesale investor and make it work for a regular home buyer. So let's say the seller wants $165 and the house might be worth $200,000 on the market. No investor is going to be willing to buy that via wholesale. There's no profit in it. But with a novation agreement, I could partner with the seller, get their permission to market the property on the MLS, and then find a retail buyer that's willing to move into the house, live in the house, and get a loan on the house and pay closer to $200,000. So let's say they did pay $200,000. That buyer would close directly with the seller. The seller would get their $165,000, and then the difference between the $200,000 and the $165,000, minus the realtor's commissions and closing costs and other seller fees, that would come to me. So in this example, I might pocket around 10 to 15 grand without ever actually buying the house myself. So Novations would then become my secret sauce. I'd be able to monetize leads that most wholesalers would throw away. I would still do plenty of straight wholesale deals, quick contract flips to investor buyers, but Novations would add a significant source of revenue on deals that I would have otherwise passed on. It would boost my average profit per lead and help me reach that 70 plus deal per year mark faster. But of course, with doing more deals of any kind, that's going to mean doing more work. I'd be negotiating with sellers, coordinating with buyers, managing a ton of moving parts, and it would be clear that I would need an extra set of hands. Time to hire some help. So that would be step 7. I would multiply my efforts by hiring virtual assistants. To scale beyond what one person could handle, I would need to build a team without breaking them. So I'd bring on virtual assistants to handle a ton of the workload. My first VA would take over those initial calls and follow-ups with new leads. When a seller lead would come in, my VA would call them, collect the info, schedule the appointment for me with the most motivated prospect. So that would mean if I was on the phone with one homeowner or out meeting with one homeowner and I was getting them to sign a contract, my VA would be making sure that 2 more leads were teed up for me. This would be a huge time saver and help me multiply my effort. Next, I would get another VA to help me with dispositions, help me find buyers for my deals. They would post my deals online. They would answer investor questions and do paperwork and admin tasks. Suddenly, those tasks that would take up hours of my time, the data entry, the marketing emails, the coordinating schedules for closing, those would be off my plate. I would focus on what I do best, negotiating deals and strategizing how to grow. The best part about using VAs is that they're extremely cost effective. I would essentially get the equivalent of 3 employees for the cost of 1 local hire. Every dollar that I would spend on a VA would be coming back to me multiplied in the form of more deals closed. And I wouldn't burn out because I wasn't trying to do everything 24. The machine would be running smoothly. Leads would be coming in. They'd be followed up with. Deals would be made, and we'd stay organized throughout. So step 8, I'd outsource the paperwork. I'd leverage a company called Easy REI Closings. With multiple deals moving at once, the final piece of my system would be making sure that each deal closed without hiccup. The closing process after you get a contract, coordinating with the sellers, getting their information so you can pull payoffs, all of those things, plus all the documents, can become a tangled mess if you're handling volume. So instead of doing all of that myself, I would use a transaction coordination service called Easy REI. They basically would become my closing department on demand. Once I had a deal under contract and a buyer lined up, in the case of a wholesaler or Novation, I would just hand off the details. They'd get all the title work pulled together. They'd communicate with the seller. They'd communicate with the buyer and make sure that every document was in order for closing day. If any issues popped up, a lien, maybe a delay, they would manage it and they'd keep everybody in the loop. So for me, when I really started to do some volume in my business, this was a game changer. I no longer had to micromanage the escrow process. No more worrying if a title commitment came in or if a seller forgot about the closing appointment. The transaction coordinators handled it, and I didn't even have to show up. They just wire me the money. Guys cost a little bit per deal, but they're well worth it. Using them meant in my business that no deal was going to fall through the cracks because of paperwork. And I could put my energy into finding and locking up even more deals. So by this point in my business, I would have a fully streamlined operation. Think about it. In roughly 12 months, if you followed this blueprint, you could go from $0 and doing everything yourself to a business that sourced leads for you, maximized each deal's value, delegated the follow-ups and the admin to a team, and even outsourced the final closing process. When I built this blueprint, It resulted in 72 deals in 12 months and over $2.5 million in wholesale business, built essentially from thin. So if you're watching this, I just walked you through the journey step by step. But to quickly recap the 8 steps. First, you would find free foreclosure leads online. Second, you would knock on doors and leave sticky notes. Third, you would use TruePeople and social media to reach owners. 4, you would close your first deal and get that proof of concept. 5, reinvest your profits into inbound leads. 6, add novations to maximize your deals. Hire virtual assistants to scale up. Use a transaction coordinator like Easy REI Closings to streamline your closings. That's the blueprint. Now, none of this would matter if I didn't take action. Knowledge is great, but execution pays the bills. So my challenge to you, use this plan. Start with step 1, get some leads today. Then tackle step 2, tackle step 3, keep going. It works if you work it. If you found this valuable at all, do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button. I'm sharing more real-world strategies to build your real estate business, and I don't want you missing out on what's next. And for those of you who want direct help implementing this playbook, I've got a community on Discord. It's where serious action takers get guidance from me and my team and connect with others on the same journey. If you're ready for that kind of support, that kind of accountability, you can come join us in our Foundations program. Reach out to me on Instagram at @TheBenAllGuy, and I'll get you the info. And the cool thing about it is we handle everything after a seller raises their hand and says, I'm ready to sell. We get the contract. We get it through the transaction coordination process. We get it through closing. And all you have to do is wait for us to send you a message saying, hey, wire's going to hit your account tomorrow. So either way, thank you so much for watching. Now it's your turn to make moves. Let me know in the comments, if you follow this blueprint, how long you think it would take you to get your first deal. And I'll see you in the next video. As always, let's build your legacy together.